Okay, so let me show you first how do we install Python. So in my environment, I'm using a Linux OS. So the first thing you need to do is to go to Google and type Python, then click on download. So here you will see that the latest version is 3.8.3. And since we're using Linux, you're going to be shown with a .tar file, which you need to extract to whichever directory that you want. Okay. After that, you click on the folder itself and look and open the readme first file so you know exactly how to. So it's actually going to give you an instruction on how to install it. Right. After that, once you found that particular part about the instruction, you need to type, go to the terminal, type Python, right? Just to double check which version are you using. Here I installed Python 2 or version 2 earlier. So now let's install Python 3.x or 3.8. So the first thing you need to do is to put, or you need to go first to the folder where you extracted the installer. Right there. So you're already in 3.8.3. Then you configures or type sudo dot slash configure. Then it's gonna take you to there's a lot of output, right? So just to set your expectation, the total time to install everything, right, based on the build instruction is about less than 9 minutes, right? So we have completed the first part, and let's um, do the next one. So again, you can definitely fast forward the video and go to um, the part before 9 minutes. So you can see the next part. But if you really want to see it on how I install it, just follow the video itself. Okay, then the next step is to do the sudo make install. Okay, this should be it. At this point, we should have already completed the installation of this Python version, which is 3.8.3. In here, let's test if Python 3 is accessible. Yep, let's type. If you type Python 3, then you'll be able to go to the Python command line. Right? Of course, you can only check the version if you go out of the Python terminal. It's Python 3. Now let me show you how to execute a Python script. So let's create a file using this command touch sample.py. Then let's edit the file using the gedit sample.py. So we're gonna use the print command just to it's a simple script to print this particular string. Say print, then open parentheses, then don't forget the apostrophe or the quote, then put hello, I am J Ocampo, that's my name, then another quote, right? And to execute it, you need to type Python 3 sample.py, then it's going to show you the output, right? Hello, I am J Ocampo. You can also do it directly within the Python environment, right? It's going to show you the same thing. Okay, so let's move on to and talk about the data types. So the first part that we're going to discuss is about the string data types. So the first part is to declare, or I'll show you how do we declare strings. So IP address here is a variable, and we're assigning this string, which is enclosed by a single quote from both ends, right? Then if you type the variable itself IP address, then it's going to show you that string that you type within the code. Let's try another example. So we use a variable called hostname, then we assign a string called nxos. If we type hostname, then it's going to show you the string that you declared. And so these are called declared strings. Now let me show you some more concepts here, like how to print strings. So you will notice we put the router OSPF1, then we have this escape character /n. But if you type the config variable itself, it's just going to show you the exact string that you put, including the escape character /n. But if you type the print config, right, it's going to use the escape character /n. Right, it's going to show you a better looking CLI configuration for OSPF. All right, so let me show you how to concatenate the strings, right? So the first one that we use is the IP address and the mask /24. Let me show you how to concatenate. So we just need to use the plus operator, right? So we're going to be using the IP underscore mask variable. Then we put IP address plus mask. And if we type it, it's going to show you the concatenated output, right? But it seems that there's no space between the IP address and the subnet mask. So we need to fix that in the variable itself. If we do IP underscore mask equals IP address plus, then we put a quote with a space in between, then another plus, then you put the mask variable. And once you print the IP address or IP mask, then now it's going to give you a better looking output of the IP mask variable with a space between the IP address and the mask. Now let me show you some string built-in methods. So we're gonna use the upper built-in method, right? So which is gonna convert all of the letters within the string to a capital letter, right? From small caps to a larger caps. Let's also use another built-in method for string to replace the colon of the MAC address with a dot. You can use a dot or anything like a comma. But in this case, we're gonna try to replace it with a comma. You use the MAC address dot replace. So it checks all the parts with a colon, then replace it with a comma. You press enter after this one. Yep, see that it replaces all the colon with a comma. Alright, so let's try to let me show you another built-in method to split the strings within this variable IP address. We use the dot split command, right? And there, right? If it sees the dot, then it's gonna be, split. So all of this are just gonna be part of the list. Just do another one. Host name, it's still defined with firewall. If you want to see the other built-in methods, just use the dir command and put the name of the variable, right? So as you will see here, all of the available built-in methods that we can use. You can also use the find method, right? So it's saying that if you use the hostname.find, then f is at the 0 place for the firewall, right? Because the host name is equivalent to firewall. If you put 1, then it's actually on the last part of the string. So don't forget that all string starts with a 0, right? Not 1. Let's now go to number data types. So these are actually very simple. If you go to Python 3, then you multiply 8 times 9, then you see a 72. You do 100 minus 10, then it's a 90, and so on. Right? If you also do a division, 20/3, then it's going to show you with a decimal value. But if you put a double slash, it's just going to give you the whole number. 20 mod 3, which is represented by percentage, refers to the remainder, right? So 20 mod 3 is 2, because 20 minus 18 is 2. Alright, so that's the mat or the number data types. Alright, so let's now go to the next part, which is Boolean data types. So let's now go to the Boolean data type. So as you will notice, right, if you remember the AND operator and the OR operator, right? So AND is much like a multiplication operator, right? So of course you're gonna have two values here, two values. One is either 1 and the other one is 0, right? So if you have like 1 and 0, so that means that it's equivalent to 0, because 1 times 0 is 0. That's going to be false. But if it's 1 and 1, then 1 times 1 is 1, so it's true. But if you're using an OR operator, right? So if you have like 1 or 0, so the output will be 1, because it's just like saying 1 plus 0 is 1. Of course, if you have 1 and 1 or 1, it's going to be equivalent to 1. So that's the whole idea about the Boolean data type. So let me show you how it's being done in Python. Okay, so if you type true and false, so that means it's going to be false, just like saying 1 times 0. Right? So if it's going to be true or false, then it's going to be true, because it's just like saying 1 plus 0. Not is you use the not command. You just need to reverse the output, right? So if you have true or false, it means it's true, because it's just like 1 plus 0, so it's 1. So it's going to be true. But you have the not operator here, so it means you have to reverse it. So true, the reverse of true will be false. You can also do some comparison, like 9372, is it greater than 9396? Of course, it's false, right? Okay, so in this example, we're typing the string nexus. Is it not equal to the string catalyst? Of course, it's going to be true, right? But if you put nexus, is it in the word nexus 9396? Yes, right? If you put 9392, 9372 not existing in nexus 9396, then this should be true. 7 other examples. So let's use another variable, which is hostname, and assign it to a space. So there's no value, right? Then let's have a for loop here, right? Or it's actually not a for loop, it's an if else statement. So if hostname is configured, or it has anything in it, right? Then we have to show that it is true. Else, if it does not have any value, then let's show the other string, like host not configured. It's going to be evaluated as false. And when you press enter, then you should be able to see the result. So this is going to be false, right? Because you did not configure anything, right, on the variable called hostname. It's just showing two single quotes, no value in it. But let's see if you put a value, says we assign it with R1. So if hostname colon, then you put hostname configured, evaluated as true. Then else, the same thing, host not configured, which should be evaluated as false. When you enter it, then since we assign it, then it's going to be true. So these are conditional statements. Let's try another example here. So go first to Python 3. Oops. Let's try another example here. So let's go to Python 3. Then we assign a new variable, which is switch, and we put nexus 7010 as the string. Then let's put a conditional statement that says if the string catalyst exists in the switch variable, then assign the string catalyst to another variable, which is switch type. Else if nexus exists in the switch variable, then you need to assign another string, which is nexus, to the switch type. Else assign the string unknown to switch type. Okay, Then you press enter, right? Then you print switch underscore type. There you go, right? It should be a Nexus switch, right? Because you're using a Nexus 7010. Okay, so this is the last example for the conditional statements. Okay, so in this section, let me show you how to run a script to be able to query an existing state on different devices. On our lab, I'm going to show you how I set up the network environment using EVE-NG. So here I'm using EVE-NG. So the routers are already configured, and we just need to ensure that from the server or from the PC or from the client where we want to run the script, you should be able to access all of the routers as shown here in the topology. Right, so we have assigned Ethernet 00 to 10.1.1.0/24. Then all of these IP addresses will be put on a particular file where our client will read onto that file and gather some information from the routers. Okay, so during the initial setup, we need to make sure that those devices are reachable from the client. Right. In this case, I'm using a Linux distribution, which is Kali Linux. Okay. Just trying to check why I still cannot ping an SVI in the switch, which is .11. Checking the spanning tree. Seems everything is forwarding. All of the ports are forwarding now, so I should be able to ping the IP address. There you go. Right. So let me check if I can telnet. I can. So I have enabled AAA, so it's asking me for a username and password in the router. So all of the routers, we should be able to telnet and use the credential Cisco before you can actually query a particular information within the router. So in our lab, we're going to get the version number or the software version for all of these 5 routers. Okay, so going back to the Linux, let's review the source file. So if you go to Documents, then look to the folder Python codes, and type ls, go to the directory get version, and we have a file here that says devices. So that's where that's going to be our source file where all the IP addresses of the routers are stored. If we open that file, okay, yep, it's going to show you all of the IP addresses, 10.1.1.11 up to .15. We're going to use this to automate the telnet process from the Linux OS or to the client going to the routers and capture the version of each of the routers. So if we look at this script that says cat, so we do a cat get version.py, so that's the Python script. So there's a couple of parts here, right? So the first part is we need to be able to import some external libraries like Ray and pxspec for the script. And the next 3 parts of the script is to show you the functions that we created. First part is the def get devices list. So this is a function to access the folder or the file that says devices, right? So earlier when we do a cat space devices, so we opened that file and we were being shown with the list of IP addresses of the routers. right? So this is the command. So we have a variable and we put a list that has no information in it. Then we open the devices file, then read, right? And we have a for loop. Then once we get that information, we just need to append it, right, to the devices list, then close it, then run it again, right? So the next part is to be able to connect to the devices based on the information that we gathered from the device list or from the devices file. Right, so it's going to show you some, um, output like establishing telnet session. So, by the way, this script is written in Python 2, right, and not Python 3.x. If we run it via Python 3, it's not gonna work. But if we run it with Python 2.x, then it's gonna go through, right? So there's a lot of information here, right? But well, basically what it does is to get the IP address from the variable that we used earlier. Then we telnet to all of the devices with all of the error checking involved, right? Yeah. And the next part is to do a get version, right? So it's gonna print like a getting version information. Then we use the send line function and run this command: show version pipe include version, right? Then yep, then we print it. Got version. What's the version? Then the last part is the main program itself. So as I've said earlier, the first part is to read the file which says devices, right? And all of the information will be stored under the devices list variable. After that, um, there's going to be a for loop, right? To be able to access the devices using telnet, using the connect command, going to the IP address, then input the username and password, which is Cisco and Cisco. Then it's gonna call the function get version underscore info. Then put the session, whatever is inside the session variable, it's gonna use that. Then we close the session, of course. After that, we write whatever information that we gathered to another file, which says, actually, if you go to the directory, you're going to be able to see that new file. So let's now go to the next step, which is how to execute the script. So as I've said earlier, if we run or use Python 3, then it's not going to work, right? Because the script is written using Python 2. They're not compatible. But if we used Python version 2, which is just Python, then there, it's working, right? So as you will see, um, we read the file, which has the device's IP address, and we attach it or we put it on the list, which is declared under this variable devices list. Then the next step is that we're going to run a for loop to be able to telnet to each of the IP addresses on the list and add the username and password, which is Cisco and Cisco. It's going to show you connected to, then getting version, and that's the print statements, then got version 15.4 to T4. And it's going to do it to all of the other IP addresses within the list. So if we check the directory once again, then there's another file here that has been added, which is version.info or -info-out. This is where there's an actual file where we put the output of the script, right? In this lesson, We spoke about a basic introduction about network programmability in terms of the challenges that it's pushing to solve, the applicable technology domains, and also the common network programmability use cases. We also covered a background about Python as a programming language, its versions, script writing styles, and the Python data types. We also showed you how to install Python from a Linux OS and how common data types such as strings, numbers, and Boolean work. At the last part of the video, we executed a Python script to be able to gather the software version of 5 routers from our lab. Thank you very much for watching our video.